Hello, aviators, and welcome to the Pro Pilot Playbook podcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm Sean.
And we're coming at you again after a couple-month break. We've now got some episodes now behind our belt, and we're going to start giving you content as quickly as possible. And this channel is all about getting young aviators and old aviators and all aviators alike to launch their careers in aviation at the best possible time in the aviation history to become a pilot.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what we,
episode 41 here is I'm excited about this one because I get to show I have a little plan here. We're answering a question. This is a listener/viewer question. Mike, I guess you can read the email here from Oliver. This one caught our eye.
There's a couple things about this question, and we do get a lot of questions, and we love them. Keep them coming. And if you even submitted one months ago and we haven't got to it, we still may get to it. So don't think that it's over. So please podcast at propilotplaybook.com. Please send those questions in, and we'll get to them. This one caught our eye for two reasons. It's from Oliver, and the first one is Oliver is from Australia, so I think that's really cool that we're getting a large international following now. People from all over the world are watching this, and it's really making us feel good. And the second thing is Oliver's 10 years old, so it's probably the youngest person to write a question, and it's a great question. So I'll go ahead and read that. So he says, I love aircraft. Since I was 5, I wanted to fly and to be a pilot. On my 9th birthday, I went to a flight simulator and I felt what it was like to fly a 737. I am 10 now and I'm thinking of starting training when I'm 14. I'm wondering if I should start later or earlier. Should I move from Sydney to the US or Europe to train and start my job? Would it be better to be a corporate pilot instead of a commercial pilot? And would it be worth getting my licenses for turboprops like a Q400 or the MB series, as they are starting to get old and slow, and airline companies are moving towards jets that are faster and make less noise? I have so many questions, and I would love for you to answer them. I love your podcast, and I hope to get more recognition, as your channel has made a big impact on my perspective of being a pilot. Thank you, Oliver.
Well, first of all, Sydney. Yeah, Oliver, I got to say, I am impressed with your wherewithal and attention to detail of, saying things like the turboprops are getting noisy and slow compared to the jets and stuff. Most 10-year-olds I know, all they know how to do is stare at a screen all day on their iPad or something like that, mess around with games and apps. This is phenomenal. I love this.
Yes.
And this one hits close to home to me because, and I haven't brought this up yet on the podcast, Mike, but I just bought my first airplane. Just got a little Cherokee. Of course, you know about it, but I haven't brought it up to the listeners, but bought a little Cherokee. By the way. Yeah. Cherokee 180, which is a little 4-place, 4-passenger, 4 people, low wing airplane. And it's the 180 series, 180 horsepower engine. It's a perfect mix between something you could jump in and fly to a destination a couple hours away, versus and still be able to do flight training in it. It's not a super high performance airplane, and it's not a super slow, just built for training airplane. It's a good mix. But anyway, I myself have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old. But Campbell, the 10-year-old, is super pumped about being a pilot. He's crazy about it. They both want to get their pilot's licenses, but Campbell is bound and determined to become a professional pilot. And they both just 2 days ago, 2 days ago, took their first flight lesson. And I'm still a certificated flight instructor, so I gave them their first flight lesson. They got their first the first entry in their logbook is from their dad. So that's probably more exciting to me than it is to them. But here's a quick. Yeah, and the other portion of this is Campbell is a bit of a ham. He has his own YouTube channel already. But he came up with this idea of wanting to make a YouTube channel of him getting his pilot's license. And I'm like, well, we can do that. We could actually film every lesson and put it up there. You could have your complete training documented on YouTube. This would be great. So,
I think Oliver here might be your first subscriber.
yeah, the channel doesn't exist yet. I think we're leaning towards Skycam being the name of the channel. But I'll probably drop a whatever after we get it going. I might mention it on here again. But here's a quick clip of Campbell taking off for the first time. He's taking off for the first time in the Cherokee. Little 10-year-old Campbell. Here he is.
Here we go. Powers up. Use your feet to keep it going straight down the runway. We're looking for that 50.
50, 50,
Here you
50.
go. So slowly pull back. Pull back.
We're in like 80s.
There we go.
This is not good.
You're flying. You're flying.
I'm flying. Look at me go. I'm a flying plane.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is exciting stuff for you. I mean, Oliver, you got a couple questions here, and being in Australia, just in my experience of being around and seeing foreign students everywhere. When you go down to Florida, Florida is packed with flight schools. Or we've mentioned this before on the channel, how, Florida and Arizona, these are places where flight schools flourish because you get good weather year round. And one thing you'll notice when you start wandering around these flight schools is they are loaded up with foreign students from all over the world.
Right.
It's just the cost differences in training in the United States versus Europe and Australia, it's night and day.
Right.
Before we hit record here, I was telling Mike, it's probably on the same lines difference of trying to get your, private pilot's license in a helicopter versus fixed wing airplane. I mean, a helicopter, it's like, it could be $400 an hour. Plus, you got to pay an instructor, and there aren't as many helicopter instructors, so that's going to cost you more too. So every lesson is like $500 an hour versus fixed wing, which is going to be $100 to $150 an hour. So it's quite the difference. As a matter of fact, most people, just on that same thought, most people that want to get the helicopter pilot's license, what they'll do is they'll get their fixed wing pilot's license and then add the helicopter on after, because it's that much cheaper to do it that way. So to answer your question, yes, as far as coming to the United States, I would definitely say that's the way to go. Some foreign students I've seen over here in the country, they've already been hired by, it depends on what country, where you're at, what country you're in, what airline. I mean, everything is it's hard to just answer a blanket have a blanket answer to everything, because I know there are some countries in Europe, probably some of these Eastern European countries or something, they might get hired as a pilot before you even have your first hour. And then because you pass some aptitude test, and then they'll send you over to the United States to get all your stuff. And then you come back and fly for that company. But by and large, no matter what, the US is the place to do it. I mean, it's just flight schools everywhere, and they're cheaper.
Right. And, maybe at his age, I mean, it may be tough to make that transition right away, but
sure,
we would certainly suggest him getting into a cockpit over there and starting some training.
Right. Yeah, that was one of your questions. Should I start later or earlier? There is nothing wrong with starting now. Going over to, if you got a local airport next to you, go over and taking a lesson maybe every 3-4 months. Remember, you can't get your license until you're 17. That's just your initial private pilot certificate. You can't get that till you're 17. You can't solo till you're 16. You got to have so many solo hours and dual hours. Dual means with an instructor to get your license. So that happens when you're 16, you can solo. When you're 17, you can get your license. That's your private certificate. And then there's things you can be doing in between there. When you're your instrument rating, stuff like that. When you're 17, you can get your commercial pilot certificate, which allows you to fly for hire, and that's not really an airline job. That's typically a flight instructor position, teaching people how to fly, or maybe flying skydivers or doing mapping stuff. It's used for time building. It's a time building job. And then when you get to your 1,500 hour mark, then you can start putting those applications out for the airline. And if you were already, of age, all this could be done within around a 2-year window if you're really hot and heavy on it and throwing your time and money at it.
I just read an article. Actually, I don't have it pulled up right now, but this morning, I think it was one of the commuter airlines, maybe Mesa. The CEO wrote an article putting pressure on regulatory people to reduce that 1,500 hour restriction. So.
I saw that. Yep. And I saw another article. They're working the other side for the retirement. This is all to deal with the pilot shortage. They're working, they're already trying to make that 65, 70 years old now, or, I think they're pushing for 70, but maybe it'll end up 67 and a half, like, some of the tax rules.
You don't know. Right. Yeah. Right. But, as far as the jets versus turboprop in the corporate versus airlines, I think we do have a whole episode on the corporate versus airlines thing.
Yeah, we do.
The pros and cons. Airline pilots, Oliver, you're gonna, you're probably gonna make more money. It's a different type of lifestyle. We're both corporate pilots. We love it. We'd love to have you on our side too. You're going to fly some advanced equipment and go to some cool places. So that's a personal preference for you. I am hearing a lot of the younger guys are just geared straight to the airlines, now. That's up to you and what opportunities unfold for you once you start your training. The turboprops versus jets. I mean, you are correct, and you kind of answered your own question. Turboprops are kind of fading, and they're great. They're fun to fly. I've got a lot of turboprop time and King Airs and things like that. And they're magnificent machines. And for certain missions, they actually do better than jets. But it's hard to go backwards. I mean, there's a joke in the business, right, that props are for boats. But, once you do get into the jet world, they are so much quieter and faster. It's what you want to do. So,
but it's nothing you have to worry yourself about.
Right.
It goes into none of your decision-making processes at this point. I mean, especially at this point, but even if it were like Mike and I sitting here trying to decide, should I do this or that? What the company that you would go after, that you would be applying to, or, that's the person who decides jets or turboprops. They will train you for that machine. Even in some of your smaller turboprops, even if you're talking about a little Pilatus or a TBM, those airplanes are still big and complex and expensive enough that it would require training. So it's not something you would like go to your flight school and say, hey, I need a turboprop rating in this particular, because it's model specific. So the TBM 800, if that's what you were flying, is not going to let you fly a Pilatus or a Caravan, which are all three turboprops, or a King Air, which is a twin turboprop. Those they're not the same. It's machine specific, airplane specific, down to the type number. And that's what we're talking about. We have episodes talking about it. A type rating, which is a license to fly a specific jet. Every jet you fly requires a type rating. Just because you can fly a 737 does not mean you're allowed to fly a 757 or vice versa. So nothing to worry about there, not at all. What was another one of your questions? Oh, earlier or later. I don't see any problem with, like I was getting ready to say before, of if you got a little airport next to you, going over there and taking your first flight lesson and, getting your, actually sitting right behind me. Here's, this is, so my boys, cause I bought that airplane in their stocking for Christmas this year.
Yeah.
They all got logbooks. They both got logbooks, and they got some headsets under the Christmas tree on Christmas morning. I haven't filled it out yet because we just flew 2 days ago, but this is the same logbook I had for my very first logbook. ASA still made this.
Wonderful.
Yeah, here's my original one from when I first started flying back in 1995. So I bought them the same exact one. But yeah, you get your logbook, and maybe because you're only 10, maybe have your parents take you over there to the airport once every 6 months or something and take a flight lesson with an instructor. And at that age, it doesn't matter. Maybe every 6 months, you probably will end up flying with a different instructor. So you get some different insight on stuff. And the time that goes in this logbook, Oliver, it never expires. It's there for the rest of your life, and it will only go towards any other certificate and rating you're going after. So it would not be a waste of money or time to do that. And it would probably just keep that fire lit underneath of you brighter and hotter.
Yeah. And he's got the fire, man. So
yeah, he's already going. I love it.
Oh, he could be, Sean, we could be talking to the youngest ever airline pilot in Australia, by the time this is all over.
Very possible. Yeah. He'll be
we love the question, Oliver, and keep us posted on
youngest Qantas hire.
I don't know. I don't know. Oh man, that's great. Yeah. So we love the question. Keep us posted. And we'd love to see your progress.
That's a good point, Oliver. As you go through, and you say you got more questions, don't feel bad about sending us more. Love it. And send us a picture. Send us a picture of your first flight.
That'd be great.
To see that.
That'd be great.
And if you have a question for us you'd like us to answer here on the podcast, you can email us at podcast@ProPilotPlaybook, and we'll answer it here just like we did Oliver's. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Thanks.